This movie actually has quite a history.
Yes.
When you think about all the stuff that Tarantino said. Almost every interview he's done for a movie, from Reservoir Dogs to Death Proof, at one point or another he's mentioned a war movie he was writing called Inglourious Basterds.
That's true.
And people were wondering for the longest time if this thing was ever going to be made.
Like Sin City.
Well, I remember for the longest time it was going to star Michael Madsen as I can't remember his character's name, but it was not All Lorraine. And I think it was like a different thing back then. But regardless, the title does kind of come from that Castellari did it, I think. Yeah, because he has a cameo in the movie. He had a cameo in the movie, but you can't really see him.
Yeah, it's right here, Castellari.
It's got the same title, except it's spelled right, and the plot is... They're not even remotely the same movie. It's just the title. A lot of people like to say, oh, Tarantino, you know, all he does is homages and steals from other movies. This movie's title wasn't even it's not even the same movie, but people love calling him out for stealing this title. But regardless, there's a lot of theories on why the title's spelled the way it is. But he said he won't say because it's an artistic thing. But I'd say it's part of to differentiate from that other movie. And I also like the other theories, like when we actually see the title in the movie, it's because it's engraved on Aldo Rain's rifle. Mm-hmm. The theory is that Aldo Rain just can't spell.
Judging the way Aldo Rain comes off in the movie, I think that's a good possibility.
So, I'm gonna say this up front. If you're not prepared to go through this whole movie, you might as well just fuck off now. Because, this movie is 2 hours and 33 minutes and has, 8 scenes in it?
Yeah.
So the only way you can describe how awesome this movie is to pretty much describe it from beginning to end.
So basically, this is just pretty much telling you right now, these next 2 videos, these next 2 weeks, are going to be just love letters to these movies that we love so much.
There's 5 chapters? There's Once Upon a Time in Nazi-occupied France, Inglourious Basterds, Operation Kino. No, the Paris one. I forget what it's
the one that everyone doesn't think about. Even though it's so crucial in the movie.
The one with Shoshana and Zoller.
Yeah.
And then Operation Kino, and then Revenge of the Giant Face. That's 5 chapters and 8 scenes through the whole movie. Because the scenes are so long. I'm a little embarrassed I can't remember the 3rd chapter's name.
Hold on, I'm looking for it.
It's, oh my god.
Give me a second, I'll find it.
You usually look things up faster than this.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on a wiki page. What can I say?
Okay, anyway, we'll start with Once Upon a Time in Nazi-occupied France.
So we'll get to it. There you go.
Well, okay. Maybe I should do something before I go into the movie itself and mention, here's the thing.
Got it.
When I see a Tarantino movie for the first time, normally I'm a little too distracted.
Yeah.
Like, when I was... I won't go into why, but my nerves were in a frenzy the first time I saw Bastards.
German Night in Paris.
German Night, yeah. My nerves were in a frenzy the first time I saw Bastards. On top of the fact that I hadn't slept.
Yes.
That's not exactly the way to watch Bastards.
Well...
I mean, it's a fond memory, but otherwise, you know, if you're going to get enjoyment out of Bastards, I mean...
I laid on this couch sick as a dog watching it in Russian on the internet.
Well, the thing is I'm too distracted by the Tarantino-esque things.
Okay.
Like, the first scene alone, like, the very first shot is an homage to Unforgiven. Both movies have the very same first shot. And I was like, wow, that's, so Unforgiven, and that distracted me. And then, later on in the scene when, Londa asks for milk.
Yes.
And he takes the glass, and he drinks the entire glass without stopping, and we never cut away from it. I was like, oh, that's kind of like the Sprite in Pulp Fiction. Mm-hmm. I was too distracted with stuff like that. But I saw the movie like 5 more times while it was still in theaters, and now I have the appreciation I have for it. And I've seen it many times since then. Me and Chris, my brother, used to watch this movie on Showtime all the time. Like almost like whenever I'd go down to Huntington and hang out with him.
Mm-hmm.
Bastards is always on Showtime, and we watched it like every time it was on.
Never had movie channels.
This was when he worked at DirecTV, so he had all of them.
That makes sense.
So anyway, going into Once Upon a Time in Nazi-occupied France, we get this dreaded score, and we see this, they're a French family, but they're hiding Jews under the floorboards. Shoshana's family.
Yep.
And Londa and his posse are coming. His entourage. But, if you will, that's probably the most flattering way Nazis have ever been referred to.
Entourage?
Entourage. I'm sorry, people.
Wow.
Disclaimer in this video. If I say something offensive, please ignore it. Okay, so, Londa comes, we see him for the first time, and I'm like, oh, this is that guy everybody's talking about, because he won Best Actor at Cannes. We were talking about him for, supporting actor. Which, by the way, he fucking swept.
Yes.
It was originally going to be DiCaprio.
Yep.
Which, of course, you know, they made up for a few years later, but we'll get to that. And he's this very charming Austrian guy. I'm like, this is the guy that people are saying is the villain? I was like, he seems awfully friendly. You know, minus the Nazi uniform.
Yes. He's a very nice Nazi.
So, he comes into the house, and he does this. Tarantino puts his genius to work immediately. He sends the woman of the house outside, and he's just talking to this, his name's Denny something. He's a French actor.
Menachet?
Yeah, he looks so much like Liev Schreiber.
Yeah, he really does.
And they're having this dialogue, and he's just asking, you know, things, and just being very nonchalant about it, and he's just saying, like, you know, this is just a routine check, you know. Londa knows they're there, of course. But he's not letting that on. So, he's just saying, this is just, you know, a routine thing. I just gotta, you know, check and see what you've seen, you know, what you've heard and all that. And then he's doing this very, very, it's a lot like Jules with Brett.
Yes.
This very subtle intimidation. Starting from drinking the milk. Like, here's what I always thought about. They offer him, like, you know, like, water or wine or something. And he said, they're a cow, he keeps bringing that up, they're a cow farm. And that's why he knows they have milk. And apparently milking cows is like a really tough task. And it takes a lot of work.
That's what people say.
And, you know, they have all this milk. And they've worked so hard to get it. So Lana sits down and they say, would you like water or wine or whatever? And he says, actually, since you're a cow farm, I'd like milk. And they work so hard. He has 2 glasses of milk that he just chugs down like they're nothing.
Yep.
And then once the women have left, he starts talking about the way he hunts Jews. And he does like the rat and the hawk thing, dialogue. And he refers to himself as like a detective, more so. And then he talks about how he's the Jew hunter, which I don't know where exactly he stands on this, because I guess it's an intimidation thing, but he tells Monsieur Le Petit that he likes the name the Jew hunter, but then later when he's talking to Aller Rain, he scoffs off and says that's just a name that stuck.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing he just likes
He's indifferent.
I'm guessing he likes the name just to be intimidating.
Yes.
And then we get that great scene where he starts smoking his pipe, and it's like a my dick is bigger than yours thing, just so you know. Like, look, he has this tiny little pipe, and he's just kind of smoking, and Londa's like, I smoke a pipe as well, would you mind if I smoked with you? And he's like, sure. And he pulls out this gigantic Sherlock Holmes pipe.
Yes. Children would use this for bubbles.
And it's just, literally every single thing that Londa does is in some way an intimidation method.
Yes.
And now finally, while they're just sitting there smoking their pipes like 2 old friends, Lana just gets there's a really long shot on his face, and he just has this not fucking around look on his face. And he finally just says, "You're sheltering Jews, aren't you?" And he says, "They're under the floorboards, aren't they?" Lepidate's about to, breaking down and tearing up and, just confessing everything, because there's absolutely no way you can hide anything from Lana.
No.
And then just to be really, really cruel, he gives them false hope and says, well, if you don't mind, I'm going to go back to, or no, he's talking in English.
Yeah. So
they can't understand him. And he walks over to where they are, and he just kind of motions, and he's like, "They're right here." And then he says, "Well, I'm going to go back." While he's still talking in English, he says, "I'm going to go back to French, and I'm just going to, he's just going to act like he's leaving." And he says, "Well, it's been a pleasure. There's nothing to be seen here. I'm going to head out." And he acts like he's calling the women back into the house, but he's actually calling his men in. And then just as he's saying goodbye, he says you hear that score, that really,
dooming score.
And then he does a double-sided adieu. He's acting like he's saying goodbye to them, when of course he's saying goodbye to them. I think he even motions to the floor when he says it.
He does.
And then they blow Shoshana's family the fuck away, except for her. They somehow missed her. And then she gets out, and we get the searcher shot. It's all blackness except for the doorway, and then Londa appears in it. And then, for a reason if you read the script, it goes into it, but a lot of people wonder why he didn't just shoot her. Mm. Because even though she was really far away, maybe he could have. But he just lets her go and does his Au revoir Shoshana line. And the scene fades out. It actually continued in the script, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but he talked about why he didn't shoot her. It was something basic, just... But anyway, we go into the second chapter, which is the title. And that's the big monologue with Pitt about him needing 8 soldiers. I don't know the thing. Every time, when people know how much I love Tarantino, everybody expects me to know Alder Rain's speech, or expects me to know the Bible verse from Pulp Fiction. I don't. Not completely, anyway. Maybe if you were to start it, going, I'd probably be able to finish it out, but off the top of my head, I don't know. But anyway...
I'll see if I can find it. Give me a minute.
Point being, I'm trying to figure out, there are some of the bastards we recognize, like Sam Levine from Freaks and Geeks. Is Hirschberg. B.J. Novak from The Office is Yudovich. Til Schweiger is obviously...
Hugo freaking Stiglitz.
He's actually not in the opening yet, because they haven't got him yet.
No.
But, then there's also, Wiki and Omar, and, Omar's been in something, but I forget what it is. But regardless, and of course Eli Roth.
Donna Woods.
Yeah.
I've got it right here.
What's that?
His speech. My God, I can't imagine trying to remember it.
It was the first trailer. The very, very misleading trailer that made people think this was going to be a balls-to-the-wall action movie.
Yes.
Anyway, and of course we meet Aldo Rain, and he's got this scar around his neck from where he was, I guess the theory is he survived a lynching. So it's like a rope burn or something.
Yes.
Then we go into that. A lot of people, I don't really get this, maybe because I'm not German or something. Offensive line number 3.
Woo! We're batting 1,000 tonight.
Even though he's the hero, a lot of people have said they are frightened by Aldo Rain's speech. I don't know if it's just because it's
interesting.
I don't know if it's because it's so bloodthirsty and it's his delivery of it, or the way a lot of people say what does it is when he says, "Each and every man under my command owes me 100 Nazi scalps," and he does that step forward, and he's right up in the camera when he says, "And I want my scalps, and all y'all are gonna get me 100 Nazi scalps taken off the heads of 100 dead Nazis, as he says, or you will die trying." There you go. That's as close as I'm gonna do to doing the thing. And then we get,
I've got it, but it's too long.
We go into the Hitler thing, where he's learned about this attack, and they send in the guy that's had the swastika carved into his head. And then we see how that happened, and that's the famous scene where they have this was kind of a bad casting choice, because I've seen it happen more than once. once. Not with me personally, but like I read around that it's happened. This guy, I forget his character's name.
Private Butts. Got his name right here.
The guy that Donowitz beats to death.
Oh, okay.
His
name is... Looking. Go ahead.
So they bring out this guy, and they're going to question him about where the rest of them are.
Werner Rackman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They bring this guy's got quite a... We've never seen this character before, but he's got quite a bit of an entrance. He gets like a song and slow-mo and everything. Some people have mistaken him for Londo because he has a striking resemblance to Christoph Waltz.
Interesting.
But anyway, then this famous scene where the guy gets down on his knees in front of Donowitz, they introduce the bear, as he calls him, and we hear the smacking the bat against the wall, and he gets closer and closer, and he just comes out of this tunnel. Now, a lot of people think it's anticlimactic, because even though he got beefed up for the part, he's still Eli Roth, and he's still pretty scrawny.
Yeah.
And you get this big build-up. Maybe it's on purpose.
I think it is.
You get this big build-up in the darkness, and you don't know what's coming for you, and just little Eli Roth walks out with a baseball bat.
It's like an animated movie.
It's like the scene in Frankenweenie.
Yep.
With the shadow. SpongeBob did that joke, too, where the Fry Cook Games and Plankton's opponent comes out, and it's this gigantic guy, and he's like bigger than the whole stadium. But then he turns around, and the opponent's actually Patrick, and Patrick's attached to a small strap on the guy's back.
Yep.
But anyway, I take Eli Roth more seriously than Adam Sandler was originally going to be lead Donowitz. Donnie Donowitz. I don't know how that would have worked.
Sandler can play good, like straight parts where they don't involve comedy, but I don't know how... Well, I guess I could see it when he was walking out, when he's hitting the bat against the wall, and when he's hitting it in his hands. I can imagine that being Sandler. He's actually probably about the same size as Eli Roth, so they're both scrawny men, so that's how we get over it.
The person I saw it with actually gave me the visual image of when he's talking about Teddy fucking Williams hits it out of the park after he beats the guy to death. If it were Sandler, he would have beaten the guy to death and then, like, done the gibberish.
Teddy Williams. That was the worst Sandler impersonation of all time. I'm sorry for that.
We gotta get Jimmy Fallon in here.
Yes.
So, regardless, you'll actually see, this was actually acknowledged in a deleted scene that actually was in the cut that played at Cannes, but they cut it out of the theatrical release. We get a little backstory on Donnie's bat, which you'll see has a bunch of Jewish people's names written on it.
Yes.
Like Anne Frank is in there, and then other people. The scene was, they introduce him with the bat, and then we cut, kind of like the Hugo Stiglitz scene, we cut to a flashback, and he's like at this, he's at an old woman's house. I don't know if it's somebody he's related to or not, but he tells us the story of how the bat has an endless number of Jewish victims' names on it.
Okay.
And she's writing her name on it. And then we cut back and all that. And yeah, this is when we're introduced to Hugo Stiglitz. We actually, this is after. The Hugo Stiglitz thing is before, but everybody's heard of Hugo Stiglitz. We get this, it's very Kill Bill-like.
The great guitar riff, too.
Yeah, Hugo Stiglitz has his own theme. And that also introduces us to Samuel L. Jackson's narration.
Yep.
And he tells us the story of how everybody's laughing, and then Hugo Stiglitz's name comes up in big yellow and black letters.
It's great.
And we get this whole background about who he's actually a German soldier, but he's fighting the German soldiers.
Yeah.
So he gets in prison, and he's gonna face the firing squad, but the bastards save him and bring him in.
They blow a bunch of people away in the process.
That guy just gets blown through the window through his newspaper.
That's great.
And then basically, Stiglitz becomes a bastard. Apparently, Hugo Stiglitz is based off like an old director or act. Jesus Christ, he's an old German actor, I think.
Okay.
I'm not positive on that, but just like Aldo Rain and all them, and Mike Myers' character are all named after actors or actresses. But yeah. then we're, but that's the problem. We'll get to that when we get to Operation Kino. Yeah, the segment people tend to not think about or acknowledge much is A German Night in Paris.
Yep.
Because it's kind of the, I mean, it's very, okay.
It's extremely important.
A German Night in Paris has a couple of great scenes in it. But the thing is it depends on how you feel about Zoller's character. If you don't like Zoller's character, you're going to hate the first part of German Night in Paris.
Yeah.
Because it's the whole introduction to him. As important as he is. Daniel Bruhl's really going to take off this year. He has Rush and The Fifth Estate. And I think another one, too. He's mainly known for that movie. I think it's called Goodbye Lenin. It's like a foreign art house.
Lenin, Stalingrad, that type.
So, basically he spends this whole time hitting on Shoshana.
Yep.
And he's trying so hard to get laid.
Yeah, very much so. And
we learn that he's a war hero, and he shot all those people and all that, and they're going to make Nation's Pride about him. Mm-hmm. They've already made Nation's Pride about him. He stars in it as himself, and they're going to play it, and they're looking for a theater. And of course, Shoshana owns a theater, but she's posing as a French woman.
Yeah.
And once again, there is a deleted scene where we meet this French woman whose identity she basically took, but that's not touched on in the movie, which is good because it's a little overly complicated.
All right.
So anyway, Zoller and all those people want to meet up with. It's Goebbels.
Yep.
Goebbels wants to meet with her to talk about playing Nation's Pride in her theater.
Yes. And
that's also where we meet Hellstrom, who is he's one of my favorite characters in the movie. He's played by a guy named August Deal, I think is how you say it.
Yeah.
He's in like The Counterfeiters, which won Best Foreign Movie, but I think the only other American movie he was in was he's Angelina's husband in Sold.
He is.
Yeah.
Forgot about the existence of that movie.
So anyway, he's we're introduced to him, and he's like this hardcore major that's a Nazi, and he basically works along the lines of Goebbels. They all work in this little area. And Goebbels' translator is, of course, Julie Dreyfus, who was Sophie Fatale in Kill Bill. And there's that weird scene of them fucking. To show that Shoshana can see right through their relationship.
Yes.
But then, this scene really takes off when they're just talking. Like, they're just, having a normal conversation about the theater and about movies and all that and stuff like that. And then suddenly, Goebbels looks behind Shoshana and says, Londa! And Londa is at the table now. And he gets this big, dooming introduction, because this is the first time Shoshana's ever been close to him since he slaughtered her family. But of course he doesn't. The great thing about this scene, this was also one of his big award clips. It wasn't the Oscar clip, because the Oscars that year played montages, but it might have been the SAGs played this clip. You have no idea if Londa knows or if he doesn't, because as we know, Londa knows all.
Yes.
So everybody leaves the table and Londa sits down, and they order. It's like an apple thing. I forget. But, they're sitting there and he's just kind of talking to her. And he's not letting her leave until she tries this thing. This dessert. And then, once they get it, he makes her wait until the whipped cream is there. Like, this is the interesting thing about Bastards. I guess it's because I've seen it so many times, or how well they deliver the dialogue. But, people complain about how much subtitles there are. But here's the thing, is the way it's delivered and the way the dialogue flows along in that Tarantino style. When I remember people saying dialogue in Inglourious Basterds is not in English, I remember it in English.
Yeah.
Like, he says, "Wait for the cream" in French, but every time I think back to that scene, I hear Walt saying, "Wait for the cream" in English.
Yeah.
I guess that's just how it works. And he takes one bite and then puts his cigarette out in it. But there's this moment where he's looking at Shoshana with the same eyes he used in the beginning when he said, "You're sheltering Jews, aren't you?" And we don't know if he knows or not. And he says, there was something I was going to say. And then there's a silence, and then he says, but I can't for the life of me remember what it was. And he leaves it at that. And we never learn what that was, even though we have a pretty good idea. And that kind of leads, and of course she has like an emotional breakdown after he leaves the table, after everybody else is gone. Because she's looked into the eyes of the person she's been seeking revenge on for 4 years, and she's ran into him suddenly and unexpectedly, and had to have dessert with him and look him in the eyes. And then there's that moment not many people understand. Like, well, that sounds pretentious. That kind of goes over people's heads because they don't know the history. I didn't know. I had to look it up. She's giving Goebbels a tour of her theater, and they're getting ready to leave. And she's talking about a movie that she loves with Lillian Harvey. And Goebbels screams, Lillian Harvey, and throws a hissy fit and says he never wants to hear that name, and he leaves pissed off. That's because apparently Lillian Harvey was a famous actress in that time period that helped Jews escape imprisonment.
Nice.
And that's also where we're introduced to Marcel, who's basically Shoshana's black lover.
Yeah.
And he's like the projectionist. And it's a weird part to think about it with him in, but to my understanding, usually stuff like this gets thrown around and it's not as straightforward as it sounds. But supposedly, Tarantino and Eddie Murphy talked about Eddie Murphy being in this movie. Obviously, the only person Eddie Murphy could be in this movie is Marcel.
That's very interesting.
That's to me. It was never confirmed or anything. Like, it may be them meeting at all may be fabricated. It probably is. So there's that. And then that's when we learn Shoshana's plan of getting all the Germans in here, locking the doors, and burning the place down. Like we never learn whether or not it's a suicide mission. Like, they kind of play it off that way, but at the same time, you think they could have had an escape plan. I don't know. That never goes into that. Shoshana dies before then anyway. So we go into Operation Kino, which is my favorite scene of the movie. First we do the scene with Mike Myers and Michael Fassbender, which nowadays is a weird thing to think about two guys doing a scene together in a movie that was nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, no lie.
Mike Myers has this very interesting cameo in makeup that looks like an SNL character he would do. And you have Winston Churchill sitting in the background. Do you know who plays Winston Churchill?
Not without looking.
Rod Taylor. Rod Taylor is the voice of Pongo in the animated 101 Dalmatians movie.
Wow.
He's the guy that plays Winston Churchill. He's just there to sit in the background, too. But nevertheless, it's that Tarantino school of getting a veteran actor just to be there, just because it's awesome. So anyway, I didn't know who Michael Fassbender was when I saw Bastards, because it was right before his breakout. This assisted his breakout, obviously. Archie Hickox was originally going to be Tim Roth.
He's one of them.
Then he couldn't be. Then Archie Hickox was going to be Simon Pegg.
Yep.
Star Trek is why Simon Pegg didn't do it. Mm-hmm. So they got Fassbender. Now, I was confused when I saw this, of course. Like I said, I hadn't slept and I was distracted.
Yes.
In the first scene, Fassbender has a mustache. When they're in the basement of the tavern, he has shaved his mustache.
Exactly.
I got kind of lost. I wasn't aware they were the same character for a while. But, you know, like I said, I didn't know who Fassbender was back then, so I didn't have a... Obviously, Tim Roth or Simon Pegg's mustache or no mustache, I could tell who it was, but Fassbender confused me, but I've got it down now. Whatever. Okay, so we go into the basement of the tavern. Now, I didn't think about this at all, and I'm kind of glad I didn't notice it, because I think it would be way too distracting for people going, I want you to think about this for a minute.
Okay.
Apparently, it's an intentional reference that Brad Pitt, in Bastards, multiple times expresses his disdain for the idea of fighting in a basement.
Wow. Yeah, that would have been extremely distracting if I would have thought about that.
That's just like the beginning scene when after Donowitz has beaten the guy to death and he's about to beat the other guy, he says, 2 hits, I hit you, you hit the ground, is a paraphrase of Emilio Estevez's line in The Breakfast Club. 2 hits, I hit you, you hit the floor.
Wow.
So, anyway, and we go into the best scene of the movie, which is this tavern scene. This scene is like, what, 15 to 20 minutes long?
Yes.
So, they're in the tavern. They meet up with Bridget von Hammersmark, who's like their narc, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're playing that card game with her. And they're having a dialogue, and she's this famous actress, and they're, having fun. They're posing as Germans and all that. And then they're playing this game, and then they're getting in this discussion about, I think they're talking about Fassbender. They say his accent is off.
Yeah.
It's Fassbender, it's Wiki, and it's Stiglitz that go down and pose as Germans. So they play this game, and then after he gets called out on his interesting accent, Hellstrom is on the other side of the bar. It's like in another room, like he's by himself. And he picks up his drink, he turns the record player off, and he goes up to the table, and he like interrogates them, because he's suspicious. But then they pretty much fooled him, so he sits down at the table and decides he wants to play the card game. He's very kind about it, too. He asks them if he can join. And then, of course, he gets King Kong, and they do that whole thing. Where Tarantino brilliantly brings together the story of King Kong and the early stories of black people and how they're the same. So then they just continue to dialogue for a while. And everything is fine. Everything is hunky-dory. But then, it's time to order more drinks. And of course, Fassbender says he wants 3 drinks. And when you're seeing the movie for the first time, you don't know what the problem is, but Hellstrom goes completely silent and you know something's off.
Yep.
So, finally, Hellstrom lets him know that the ruse is up. And he points a gun at Fassbender's balls. And he's telling him that he's got a gun pointed at his balls.
Yes.
And then Fassbender says, here's what's really funny, is, it's perfectly timed sound. Fassbender says, well, that's really funny, because I've had a gun pointed at your balls since you sat down. And when we see Fassbender's gun, when that line is said, somebody in the bar laughs. And the first few times I saw it, it always got an audience laugh in the theater, too. And it's almost like Tarantino knew that was going to be the reaction, so he actually had that guy in the bar assisting the audience's laughter.
Nice.
And then, of course, Stiglitz comes in, and Stiglitz, all but subtly, sticks the gun right into Hellstrom's dick.
Yeah.
And, of course, does the thing where Tarantino loves his characters, so it's this great... Normally he's homaging other people's characters in other people's movies, but he makes an homage to his own character. And Stiglitz says, at this distance, I'm a real Frederick Zoller. And then finally, after the tension is built... Okay, this scene is built for like 15 to 20 minutes.
Yes.
This is the brilliance of it. And then the guns go off. Not only do the guns go off, Stiglitz shoots... Well, the thing is Hellstrom keeps slapping Stiglitz on the back. And this gives Stiglitz flashbacks of getting whipped. So, you can just see Stiglitz's rage every time he looks at Hellstrom, even though they're just playing this little card game. Even with the G.W. Pabst card on his head.
Yeah.
So with all this rage, even after he shot Hellstrom in the balls, and everybody else in the bar is killing each other, he has Hellstrom bent over the table, and he's stabbing him repeatedly in the back of the head. Just for good measure. Now, the problem is a lot of people complain that, Stiglitz is this big, built-up monster of a character. Like, he's one of Tarantino's most famous characters as of late.
Yeah.
And just like that, he gets gunned down by some waitress in all this carnage.
But unless you're, like, intensely paying attention, like I know you have, because you told me exactly who kills who, you're not going to know that's who took out Stiglitz. You just think it was someone random just took him out. It wasn't the fact that it was a waitress.
But the great thing about this scene is all this tension is building for like 20 minutes.
Yep.
And it's all leading up to this. And after 20 minutes of build-up, it takes about 12 seconds for everybody in that room to die.
Yep.
With the exception of Wilhelm, the soldier with the kid, and Bridget von Hammersmark. And that's where we get our Mexican standoff, but it's different. Because you have Aldo upstairs, and he comes down, and he's trying to explain everything. And he's saying, like, no, you need guns pointed at me to have a Mexican standoff. And he said, I've got, what, it's like, they have grenades up there. He says, like, he basically explained, I can't remember the exact dialogue. But anyway, he explains that you can do a Mexican standoff with grenades, too.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he insults Bridget von Hammersmark and she blows him away. And then that leads to them getting themselves to the premiere. Into the premiere. Because it was originally going to be Hickox and his guys going into the premiere with her. That was the whole point of this meeting. And then, obviously, they all died.
Yeah.
So now it's got to be Aldo Rain, Donowitz, and Omar that pose as the film crew. They go with her. And of course, they have to speak Italian. And I love that Bridget von Hammersmark knows. He says, we speak a little Italian. She's like, with an atrocious accent, no doubt. So, they managed to get into the premiere after torturing her. After letting them know that there's this big-ass reveal that says that Hitler's going to be at the premiere.
Yep.
And they're not aware at all of Shoshana or what her plan is. So this is all a bunch of clusterfuckery in one place. So that's when Londa knows what's up because Wilhelm wanted an autograph for his son. So she signed an autograph, Bridget von Hammersmark. Well, of course, to satisfy Quentin's foot fetish later, Londa finds that a woman lost her shoe, but he sees no other women apart from the waitresses, so he says somebody's missing. And he finds the autograph napkin, so he knows it's Bridget von Hammersmark.
Yeah.
Then we play David Bowie's song from Cat People, which had some people divided. Tarantino's thing about bringing modern music into his period movies.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into a lot next week.
Oh, most definitely.
There's this great, this is one of Tarantino's better long takes, and you know he's got a lot of great long takes. We follow Shoshana out to the premiere, we get a full shot, we come down, I can't remember what all happens in it, we come down, Zoller's there with a few guys, like, Amelia Yannings is there, I think, the first ever actor to win Best Actor.
Yeah.
And some of the other Nazi guys. And the big Nazi guys. The four that we need to win the war. And then I think we see them enter. And then we go up. And then Londa's waiting up here. And Londa's just up there having a drink. And then he spots... We don't see who he spots, but we know it's Bridget von Hammersmark. And that's what makes him come down the stairs. And then when he finally comes down, there's a cut. And then there's the, she has the broken leg from where she got shot. And Londa knows that. And there's the great scene where she says she had a mountain climbing accident?
Yep.
And he finds that hilarious. Like, he pulls away from them and goes into this laughing fit to where he's crying. Because he knows it's a bullshit story and how laughably dumb that motive is. Or that alibi is. So then he decides to test their Italian. And of course their Italian sucks.
Yes.
But the brilliant thing is Lorraine says he speaks the best Italian, Dono's the second best, and Omar third best. And Omar says, I don't speak Italian. Like I said, third best. Now, of course, he makes Rain go through Gorlami about 5 times. And then makes Donovan do Margheriti like 3 times. And it gets so... It's fucking... You can see Bridget von Hammersmark cringe. Because every time he says Margheriti, it gets worse. And then, of course, Omar has Dominic DeCoco and he says it flawlessly. He only has to say it one more time. So, then the ending plays out, and of course he kills von Hammersmark. I love the scene where he says, put your foot on my lap. And she's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he has the very serious look on his face and just does the silent.
Like you're literally pointing to your lap right now.
And then that's the mind-blowing thing about that scene is we have no idea what Lana's going to do to her. Because he's so calm through the whole movie and collected. And he's very smooth and very, suave about the way he is. You don't expect it at all when he just fucking lunges at her and strangles her. And then he just calls up the guy and says, the guy in the white smoking jacket, and they take Aldo Rain, and they've already caught Yudovich. Which, by the way, the script tells us Yudovich was supposed to be the getaway driver. So he was waiting outside, and that's how he got caught.
Makes sense.
To explain this, in a lot of the TV spots in the trailers, to combat Hitler's 999 thing, we got a shot of Aldo saying yes, yes, yes. Obviously, Aldo saying yes, yes, yes isn't in the trailer. But that's explained in the script as well. So apparently, I have a shot too, because that scene's in the trailer. It's him saying, Yudovich, you're going to be the getaway driver. And Yudovich says, oh, no, I'm not being a getaway driver. And Aldo says, oh, yes, you are. That's where that comes from. That's where that mythical scene comes from.
Wow. It's awesome that it actually exists.
So then we get the wonderful, that's a bingo scene, where he talks about Aldo the Apache and the Little Man. And everybody loves Waltz's delivery of, the German's nickname for me is the Little Man. He's like, well, yeah, you're not the tallest of fellas, but you're certainly not circus midget. And then there's the scene where he calls up Harvey Keitel, another voice cameo, and goes through his terms about the house on Nantucket Island and, immunity, and to tell everybody that he was a part of Operation Kino the whole time, and to get, the medal and all that.
Selling everyone out to put himself over.
And the great scene where he talks about having put the dynamite in Hitler's balcony. And we actually see the cut of that happening, and he laughs it off and says, that part's actually true. And then we have our big ending, where all of this shit converges. Yeah. Where they burn the film, and a lot of people say this scene gives them a headache because it's just so psychotic and just wild. Where it's a creepy-ass scene where it was actually Melanie Laurent's idea to do the dialogue in English.
Yep.
So, then she says, Marcel, burn it down, and all that. And then she's laughing as the screen burns down. And then Donowitz and Omar blowing everybody away, with the dynamite still strapped to them. By the way, apparently Eli Roth and Omar were almost incinerated while filming it, because it was like 200 degrees in there, and they almost didn't get out in time. But because it was a real burning building.
Good God.
Because we know how Tarantino is with his practical effects.
Yes.
And then, of course, you have the scene where Shoshana and Zoller kill each other. And then there's the really freaky scene where it's really, really disgusting, even though it's probably what most, strive to see. They shoot down Goebbels and Hitler, and they blow the holy fuck out of Julie Dreyfus.
Yeah.
And then we get this shot of Donowitz blowing Hitler's face off, literally. And then right before the building blows up, we have this cut, and obviously the projector is still going. But the screen is gone completely because it's burst into flame. But we still see Shoshana laughing amidst the smoke. And it's a really freaky image.
It's awesome.
And then the theater blows up.
Kind of like The Wizard.
Yeah. And then we have our last scene where we're just in this... We go from this really visceral, huge scene to this quiet little woods. And Londa's sitting there admiring the knife, and he's all happy with himself. And then they blow away Herman, which apparently is what they call everybody. And are you mad? I made a deal with your general for that man's life. And then Otto basically brings him down to size, and Londa does that thing where, here's the great thing is, Londa does not know how to react to this, because he's never the one in submission. He's always the one doing it. And there's this really wonderful moment where we know what's coming, and he's talking about how Sonny tells him when you get to your house on Nantucket Island, you're going to take off that fancy-looking uniform. And then we see Londa not respond, and right before it cuts away, his cheek twitches. And then Aldo says, "That's what I thought." And then, of course, we get the thing where he pushes the hat back and says, "I'm going to give you something you can't take off." And notice this. I guess it's to kind of do for pleasure, and it gives you more of the revenge feel. At the beginning, when they carve the swastika in the guy's head, the guy is totally silent.
Yeah.
Like, he can barely tell. But when they do it to Londa, and we don't see it happen. However, when he does it to Londa, we do see it, and it's disgusting. And Londa is, like, screaming bloody murder and, like, ripping the grass out of the ground. And then, of course, we get the self-proclaimed line, "I think this might just be my masterpiece." You see, I described that entire movie in 46 minutes. Because it's, that's the whole movie right there.
Yeah, it really is.
And I kind of like that even though it's so long, you can compress it to that because it shows you how the movie doesn't feel like that underwater. The first time around, maybe so, if you don't know what you're in for, but
yeah.
Especially after those misleading trailers. But once you really get to know this movie, it just flies by. It's 2 hours and 33 minutes, I think.
Let's talk, 153. Let's talk about the awards. Good God.
Yeah, it did get in, it was, it wasn't even, it was in the top 5.
Yeah.
2009, obviously, it was, because it got a picture nomination, director nomination, screenplay nomination. Waltz won everything.
Yes, and he even beat the Best Actor winners at one of the award shows.
Yeah, and London, I think, combines actor and supporting actor.
Yeah.
Just combined, and he
won.
That. That's like Can, too. Can is just actor-actress.
He beat Bridges in first that year.
And, unfortunately, he got beat by Mark Bull at the last... He won, like, everything up until the Oscar, and Mark Bull beat him for The Hurt Locker. Because The Hurt Locker was loved. But the great thing is, this past year...
Tarantino got some revenge.
Mark Bull was in for Zero Dark 30, and Tarantino was in for Django, and Tarantino won. And beat Mark Bull.
And we brought that up numerous times throughout
the great thing is, I can't remember if it was the Globes. His screenplay won at the Globes. The first thing he did was go over and hug Mark Bull.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. Well, that's how beloved. This is actually kind of a Django comment, but I'll say it while I'm thinking of it anyway, because I won't think to say it in the Django video. To show how much people blame all the great success on Tarantino, here's the thing. If you watch, I don't think Christoph Waltz is married, but he's had the same woman in his life for, like, a really long time.
Yeah.
So, what happens is, if you watch Christoph Waltz's Oscar win for Django, he's sitting beside his wife, and Tarantino's over there. We'll say it's his wife, just for argument's sake.
Okay.
And Tarantino's over there. Waltz gets up, goes over, hugs Tarantino, then comes back and hugs his wife before he goes on stage. He had his priorities were there.
Yeah, he actually has 3 children from a prior marriage, raising a young daughter with his wife, which is a German costume designer, Judith, which is the person...
Oh, she is his wife?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about this real quick. I'm just gonna throw this one tidbit in there. And then
Waltz is awesome, that's all that needs to be said.
I gotta throw this one tidbit in there, and then we're done. Obviously, Waltz won every award under the sun for playing this brutal... He's not really a Nazi. He was in Austria, and they just brought him down to do shit for them. He's just doing a job for them, basically.
It's like a bounty hunter, maybe?
However, that's the next movie.
Yeah.
However, one of Waltz's sons in real life is a rabbi.
Yeah, I was reading that in the when I was looking over the things I wanted to say during the video.
And on that note, I think we're done with Bastards, so...
Next week, oh, it's gonna be fun.
We'll just leave it at that.